go time.
The boys are back. That's right, Florida Man Sports is here with another exciting episode. So just sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride. This is Florida Man Sports.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back, Florida Man Sports.
Let's go.
Now, guys, we have a number of things to go over in today's show, but we will start with Matthew Stafford, Chris. He was given the green light to shop around and see what he can get on the open market by the Rams. There's a number of teams I can think of that would be very well suited for Matthew Stafford, but this is Florida Man Sports. So let's focus on the idea of Matthew Stafford possibly coming to join one of our Florida franchises, Chris. What's the real possibility of Matthew Stafford joining Dolphins, Jaguars, Bucs? Is that something real?
No, I definitely appreciate the question, especially since we told our fans we are officially Florida Man football, collegiate and NFL football. Yep. So definitely appreciate the question. I want to remind everybody the Florida Man Sports, we are streaming on all major platforms. But what I would like to do, Johnny, I'm going to take a quick step back because if you were like me, when you first heard the news that Matthew Stafford is being shopped around or he's able to be shopped around for himself with his agent there, didn't you scratch your head a little bit, wonder how did we get here? How did a Super Bowl winning coach quarterback get to this point?
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, and so just real briefly, you know, and doing the research, you come to find out Matthew Stafford last year wanted more money. They pushed money forward, so to owe money later on down the road, the Rams did, and then Stafford got his $40 million contract. Now he's looking to do it again, and the Rams are like, no, we're not going to do that. But do you know why they're doing that, though? Besides the fact that they don't want to push dead money forward again?
Okay.
Because at the end of the day, you've got a 37-year-old quarterback, and not only is he regressing from that Super Bowl time.
I don't know about regressing.
If you look at how the stats of when he won the Super Bowl, he's still a very serviceable quarterback. So anyways, long story short, the reason why we got here, Johnny, and why we're here now is they're basically telling him, hey, go see it. If you can get $50 million, go get it. The ironic thing, and the thing that's going to make things weird for the Rams, is that there are some teams that I think will be willing to pay the $50 million plus the draft picks. And so if that happens, then if you're Matthew Stafford, you know, he's got a wife and kids, you kind of got to ask yourself, do you want to move to Pittsburgh in the cold with your family? Because I could see that as a real possibility. I spoke about that a couple of weeks ago. If a team like the Raiders, I've heard Tom Brady wants to get them to go to the Raiders.
I understand. Like I said,
are you willing to go to Las Vegas with your kids, with your infant children? We can discuss
several different teams here. That's not the question, Chris. Okay,
no, I know, but I think it's pretty crazy. And I'll leave it at this before we go to the Florida teams, Johnny. I think it's pretty crazy because you've got, again, a team that's telling them, hey, you can go get better. But if he does, it's going to make things very, very uncomfortable. Anyways, with that being said, I just wanted to point that out. I just think it's ironic that a Super Bowl quarterback is in this position.
Okay, I don't find it that, strange. I mean, at the end of the day, he's been mowing retirement the last couple of years after he's won the Super Bowl.
Sure.
So he's mowing it. He's figuring out, yes, he played better. This is his last few years. I'm not mad at him for wanting more money. You're producing on the field, and he's producing. So why not ask for more money? It's fine.
It's just ironic that they're playing Russian roulette. And to Stafford's point, I will give Stafford this point. Guess who's making $50 million? People like Tua, people like Lawrence. So now I know we're going to tie him back to the Florida teams here.
Yes.
But that's another reason why he's asking for that kind of money.
No, he's asking because he's the quarterback. This is a quarterback-driven league. He's producing. I think the Rams have been trying to rebuild, but he's playing well enough not to. After Aaron Donald kind of went, like, all right, we'll see what's up.
They're still relevant. Yeah.
Puka came out of nowhere, drafted him well, and he's playing very well. Even with Cooper Kupp kind of regressing a bit, still he's producing. So if you're still producing, you still have that desire to play. I don't see him going anywhere. But, yeah, there are other suitors there. But, Chris, let's start with just the idea, like I mentioned, the Florida teams there. So let's first off the bat, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Is that even something to discuss any further?
No, I'm glad you went with them first. Absolutely not. Not just because of Baker Mayfield, but just because financially, in the plan that we have is to invest in our defense, invest through the draft. And the Bucs are not a team that we are in win now mode, but we have that win now quarterback. So that's my short and sweet. I can't see that as a serviceable option.
I agree with you 100%. Yeah. I think at the end of the day, Tampa's happy with Baker. He's producing. The contract's right. Yep. Doesn't make any sense to rock that boat to go ahead and stir everything up. So Tampa's out the windows. Forget about it. Right. Let's think about Miami, Chris. The Miami Dolphins, obviously, Tua was their guy. They spent a lot of money on him. But is that a real possibility? They move from Tua and maybe bring in somebody like Stafford.
So shout out to caprate.com. One of the things when we were talking about doing this is I wanted to make sure that I went and actually did the research, see if it could happen. And the answer is yes, it can happen. Going back to what I was mentioning earlier, Tua is about $53 million. Stafford is $40 million. So it would take for the Rams to restructure the deal and accept Tua for $53 million. So the question you got to ask yourself is, if they're not willing to pay Stafford the $50 million, why would they do it for Tua? Very simple. You add first round picks. So yes, the answer is it can be done. It can be done if the Dolphins are willing to give up a first round pick, maybe a third round pick, and the sign and trade for Stafford. And I'll tell you something. If I'm the Rams, I would probably take this deal. And if I'm the Dolphins, I would probably take this deal because short and sweet, Tua gets a great coach, but gets a new change of pace up there in California. Maybe he can stay healthy up there, and the Rams can see what they have in them. If not, they got the first round pick. And then the Dolphins, which we talked about last week, they're cap, strong as far as cap space goes. Here's a guy that can give you 2-3 good solid years on a team that's supposedly ready to win now. So this is, for me, if you wanted to pull the trigger, a very realistic possibility.
I think this is a realistic possibility if Daniels wasn't their coach. Daniels has developed Tua. That's his guy. I don't see them going ahead and just doing an about face and being like, no, you know what? We did all this. Let's move on from Tua. Let's go ahead. And Stafford's, you're saying 2 or 3 years. It could be 1 year. That guy's year
the way
to
that
year.
He's playing. The way that he's playing.
He has the talent.
Yeah.
But between the years, you don't know if mentally, if he's just kind of like, I'm done. I'm going to play 1 more year and I'm done. He's going to have to want and believe in that Miami is a winner and is going to compete for a championship.
Correct.
So I don't see it happening. I understand it is a possibility.
Yeah.
I am a believer in Tua. I get it. He's Mr. Glass. He has his issues there. But at the end of the day, the upside with Tua is still there. Stafford is a championship quarterback. But to go ahead and just move on from Tua, save a few bucks, lose draft picks, and just for maybe a 1-year deal, isn't worth it for me.
Well, two things on that, Johnny. Number one, obviously, this would be a minimum of 2 years from Stafford because he wants that $50 million a year. So for sure, you're going to have him there for 2 years. He wants the money is what he wants. So he's going to get that with that contract being restructured. But the second part to your point, don't tell me, please don't tell me anymore that Tua has upside. That argument was maybe 2 years ago, 3 years ago. The guy has been around in the league enough. You have enough tape on him to know what he is. Again, you mentioned the thing about him being like glass. So please don't tell me that he's like we're looking at upside here with him anymore. You know what you're going to get with him. He's a very good quarterback when healthy.
Yeah.
The key is when
upside.
The key
when
is
he's on the field,
key is when healthy.
He's one of the best.
He's only finished 1 full season his whole career. So please don't tell me that there's upside there. And if I'm McDaniels, last episode we talked about, if they don't make the playoffs, they're gone. He's fired. You're telling me that if this doesn't come up to his desk, that they don't really have a serious conversation and go, you know what? We have nothing to lose. And if he's going to commit to 2 years, we're ready to win now. Why would you not take Stafford on?
Well, because he's committed and developed Tua. So for him to go ahead and do a complete about face and possibly his final year in Miami,
Tua's peaked.
He might as well go ahead and be like, no, my chips are all in. Tua's in there with me. Let's go ahead and ride it out and see what we got. We've seen that when Tua actually finishes a season, he's one of the best. Top 3 in every important offensive stat.
We don't make the playoffs.
I'm talking about the last year. The year before, yes, they did. So at the end of the day, they have the potential. It's just the issues with Miami I've mentioned is on defense more so than the offense. Tua needs to stay healthy. There's key defensive changes, whether it's a scheme, whether I don't know what it's going to take. We'll talk about that in another episode. But no, I think that with Tua in Miami, I think it will work. It just comes down to what you mentioned. It's a big if. It's availability. And I've always said, we always talk about this. Your greatest ability is your availability. So Tua, if you get hurt this year, chances are you and your boy Daniels are done. You guys are done. You guys are tied together. We talked about it last week. So no. So moving on from Miami, let's talk about Jacksonville. Jacksonville, your boy Trevor Lawrence signed that massive deal for whatever reason. They didn't need to, but they did it anyway. But we're only asking these questions, Chris, because we've both spoken to many Jaguars and Miami Dolphin fans who are ready to move on from their respective quarterback, ready to move on from Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, because Tua's already peaked.
And you can say this. I mean, you can say that Trevor Lawrence will never really get to where he was supposed to be. But being the number 1 overall pick doesn't guarantee you success, in the NFL. But We see glimpses of things. I think a lot of guys are looking at Trevor Lawrence and his days in Clemson and thinking that, no, this guy is the guy. Is it a management fail? Is it the player? Who knows? But still, is this a real possibility in Jacksonville? Maybe moving on from Trevor Lawrence and putting in Matthew Stafford?
So, I said for Miami, definitely it is a legitimate possibility if they wanted it. I said the Bucs was not. The Jacksonville Jaguars are kind of the middle of the pack. Could it happen? Yes, it could. Mathematically, again, caprate.com here tells us that it can happen. But it's more middle of the pack because, Tua and Lawrence are different players. They have different ceilings. I feel like people still think that Trevor Lawrence has a high ceiling. That's why I was kind of disagreeing with you with Tua. We kind of know who Tua is versus Trevor Lawrence. And so for this deal to work, you got to have the Rams accepting that $55 million, which again, they would, because this guy's already getting paid that kind of money. And I think he's 26, 27 years old. So I could see them accepting that. And then for Stafford, I actually have them giving like a 3rd round pick and Stafford because I think that, again, people see the upside in Lawrence. So again, middle of the pack that it would actually happen, Jacksonville Jaguar fans. But, at the end of the day, if it'd be so funny and ironic, you got a new coach, a new president, a new GM, and then you get a new quarterback, a 37-year-old quarterback at that. I think at 37, he would be older than the coach and the GM. So,
well, I've expressed my discontent for Trevor Lawrence. It's just foolish. If you made the moves to go ahead and keep this guy, gave him the money when you didn't need to, he's coming into his final 5th-year option. You could have just went ahead and just rode it out and see what happened. It wasn't going to cost you that much more, Jacksonville, but for whatever reason, you pulled the trigger a little soon and you went ahead and paid this guy all this money. He had a horrendous season last season. The Jaguars didn't in whole. I just feel bad for this kid. He's going. Obviously, Urban Meyer didn't work out here. Didn't work out with Doug Peterson. Now we're going to Liam Cohen. And now we're seeing, is this the magical piece? But since we're discussing Jacksonville, let's go ahead and move on to exactly what you just alluded to right now, is that they went in and did the moves in the front office. They picked up, obviously, they finally got a GM there. And they finally went ahead and their president, which the president move I really like. They went ahead and their VP they picked up. And obviously, Liam Cohen is their coach. He pulled an okie doke for Tampa. So they have their pieces there. Liam Cohen's there, the greatest Jaguar of all time, Tony Baselli. He's handling there as the VP, president of operations there. And they finally hired James Gladstone, the GM. Now, Gladstone and Cohen come from the McVay tree in the Rams there. So it's interesting what they're doing here. So they picked up the pieces for McVay, his, disciples, if you will, and they pick up the greatest Jaguar of all time, leading their front office. Is this finally going to work for Jacksonville, Chris?
Florida Man Sports, on all major platforms. It's such a loaded question. In the beginning, I've always been a person that, and if you've heard other episodes, I always say I hate it when you just fire the coach and you keep the GM, or some combination. You keep the president, fire the coach and GM. So in this case, I absolutely love the fact that you decided to just clean house and start over the right way. This is who you start with.
Okay.
I hate who they picked.
Across the board?
Across the board. I hate who they picked. It breaks my heart, Jacksonville. I hope that I'm eating my words. And then to Khan, the owner there, when you pick this team, this leadership, I should say, you picked them and said, this is the leadership that's going to win me a Super Bowl. Let's just start at the top real quick, Johnny. You said Tony Baselli, and again, first picks for the Jaguars in history. He's got the history with Jacksonville. He's always been, if you look at his resume, he's always been involved in the community in Jacksonville. However, he has absolutely no experience at this level. None. Zero. Don't tell me he does. He does not. Okay. Going back to the GM, right? You've got James Gladstone. Yes, he comes from the Rams family, but he's 34 years old. I hear this guy talk on 3 different occasions already, and I hope he's right. He's very like an analytical, smart guy. His comments are always, we're going to look beyond this and we're going to sign people based on new metrics. Like, I want to see what these new metrics are. Okay. So it's very questionable at 34 years old for me. And then, of course, Liam Cohen, who, by the way, Johnny, Liam Cohen has never had more than 2 seasons on one professional team in the history of his career. So this is what I mean. Like, either Khan is just like the smartest human being alive, and the Jacksonville Jaguars are on their way to the playoffs and going to go into deep playoff runs, or this is just a terrible, you clean the deck, give you an A for that. But I'm just very scared, man. I hate to say that. This is Florida Man Sports talking specifically on Florida teams, and I'm very scared for Jacksonville. Last thing I'll say, and I know you're very high on Tony Baselli, Nick Anderson was the first pick for the Orlando Magic. If you go back, right, talking about basketball, this is a Florida team. Nick Anderson has been involved, very similar to Boselli. He's been involved with the Magic, has been ambassador, this and that, all those roles. He can't be the president of operation. He cannot. I can tell you that right now. And that's why I'm so against that. So I'm very concerned.
Well, Nick Anderson is nowhere near the type of player that Tony Boselli is. Tony Boselli was obviously the first pick
player.
I am. But you're over here trying to comparison. He can't do the job there. There's a level of greatness that comes with Boselli. Boselli, the first pick ever by the franchise, the first Jaguar in the NFL Hall of Fame.
Right.
This guy is the best of the best when it comes down to your franchise as a player. So now I respect the organization saying, you know what? Go ahead and lead this team. Be the VP of football operations. Go ahead. You've proven yourself in the community. You've proven your loyalty to our franchise.
Sure.
Go ahead and do it. So, yes, you're on sitting here like, no, he's no Nick Anderson. No, he's not. Nick Anderson, I get his first overall pick. Nick Anderson was a mid-average, just missing 4 straight free throws in the finals. Don't talk to me. Don't even mention Tony Boselli and Nick Anderson in the same sentence.
I think you missed the correlation there, and it's more than you're just sticking to the fact that one's a Hall of Famer, one isn't.
Yeah, that's important.
And I understand that part.
Okay.
But I'm referring to the fact that after they retired, they were number 1 picks, and the correlation that they were both considered ambassadors. You look at the resume,
yes.
Ambassador, and part of many Chamber of Commerce, part of many big-time president of excellent meetings, this, that, but not to this level. And that's what I meant by that. The fact that he's a Hall of Famer, how many people are great players but terrible coaches or terrible leaders? That doesn't.
I understand.
There's no value there.
I understand all that, but you're hating on the guy. You're hating on the franchise. You're hating about the franchise. Yes, ideally, every NFL team would love to hire Super Bowl winning coaches who have that pedigree that's going to go ahead. But
like Bill Belichick,
but the Jacksonville Jaguars are not a pedigree franchise. They're not something they're trying to get to that point so that about Jacksonville Jaguars as a winning franchise. For a very long time, Chris, you don't remember this because you're young. The New England Patriots were terrible. The New England Patriots were the Jacksonville Jaguars of the NFL.
Unfortunately,
for decades,
I'm not that young.
For a long time.
I'm aware.
And then what happened? That's changed. They're the most dominant NFL franchise in history. So that's changed. So you have to change the culture one way or the other. And yes, you're saying, oh, they've got no experience. I get it. And even we're talking about the coach here with Cohen. Cohen pulled an okie doke with Tampa. And I guess Tampa, they played around, but the franchise said, you know what? You can pick the GM. You can go ahead and pick your entire staff, do everything you want. So he decided to go ahead and make this run in Jacksonville. I don't get it. I don't get why, outside the fact that Tampa Bay had the number 4 scoring offense last year. Outstanding job. This is 2 years in a row now. Tampa is one and done with their offensive coordinator.
Right.
It didn't work out well for Carolina last year.
Before, and not to cut you off, Johnny, because I don't want to forget my train of thought here. So my first, after my rant that I did, I said one of the biggest things for me is concerned. So in one word, you got the resume of the 3 guys that are there now. They cleaned house. What one word would you put on this for you? Because, we're going to see what happens going forward here.
Adequate. At the end of the day, this was
okay.
This isn't a home run, guys. We don't know what they're going to do. You have the GM again coming from these are all young guys. They're just going ahead. We're going young. The GM was essentially in charge of scouting for the Rams. They did a heck of a job scouting. They went ahead and he picked up good pieces. He was very much involved in any trades. The trade to bring Matthew Stafford to the Rams. He was very much involved in drafting Puka. So that guy's coming now to Jacksonville, and he's going to go ahead and pick the right pieces for Jacksonville. You hope. We don't know. We've seen this story before, Chris. We've seen teams pick up guys.
I don't like what I see in the beginning from him. He's so young, man.
I get it. But we've seen this fail more than succeed. We saw, especially with the Patriots, they try to take all the guys from the Patriots to try to help other teams. It never really worked out. It doesn't mean that it can't. I'm just saying right now, what do you want? Jacksonville doesn't have – people aren't looking at Jacksonville like they're looking at the Pittsburgh Steelers or the San Francisco 49ers or the New England Patriots or the Tampa Bay Bucks. At the end of the day, these are teams that people want to go to because their ownership group, they're winners. They're focused on winning first, profit second. So why the heck wouldn't you want to work for a franchise
I love
like
that?
that?
You said Tampa Bay. Let's
So,
go.
Florida Man Sports, baby. So at the end of the day, I get it. This isn't like rah-rah. I'm really, really happy for Boselli. I don't care what you say. Boselli, I think that is the best move out of everything happening here. Boselli's like, I respect the Khan families being like, you know what? You're going to get your shot. You've proven your loyalty to this franchise. You're going to give you a shot to do it. So I respect the Khan family. I respect the Jacksonville Jaguars. Boselli is going to kill it. I feel it. I'm going to put it out in the atmosphere there.
Hey, let's put it. So, this is Florida Man Sports.
So I'm really happy for him.
The last thing on Khan, since you brought it up, and it's Florida Man Sports here. You know what he said about every GM and every coach and everybody, right? President, everybody. Mm-hmm. They all report to him. He said that that's something different, that didn't happen in previous years, right? So they all reporting to him. So I also want to see how that's going to work, where the head coach reports to him, the GM reports to him. Like, isn't the whole point for the coach to report with his GM and for the GM to report with the president? So again, it's just we'll see how this goes.
Well, exactly.
I just find that very interesting.
It could be a situation like the Cowboys or even with Belichick, where he was the GM. Obviously, if the head coach handpicked you to be his GM, that means you're going to do his bidding. You're going to go ahead and make sure, I want this player, get me this, get me this. That you're right. It could be an interesting power dynamic there. We don't know. But all I do know is that the Jacksonville Jaguars are used to losing. They've been losing and losing and losing.
10 losing seasons with Khan over the last 13 years.
The last thing I'm going to say about the Jacksonville Jaguars is that in general, obviously everything we've been looking at here has been an abysmal failure. Mm-hmm. These moves that have been made here are going to be a epic failure or a tremendous success. Tremendous success. No in between here.
You sure?
So I think Jacksonville Jaguars fans are used to the former, but we're all hoping for the latter.
Yes.
So we'll see what happens on that, Chris. But we've been talking about this. Your boy Cohen. Obviously, he went ahead and, as a runaway bride here and disappeared and ran off to Jacksonville here. That leaves another opening that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have filled. He leaves number 4 scoring offense in football last year. Big reason why there was success in Tampa again and made it to the playoffs again. Now, they obviously replaced Cohen there. Can we really expect Tampa to have that same level of offensive success again? Now that they obviously promoted from within, but do you see success for Tampa? Not a regression. Success means you're still the number 4. You're still a top 5 offense. Top 5 offense next year, Chris?
Short answer, yes. Short answer, yes. We do have the ability, capability, or whatever you want to say, for us to do that. And with Josh Grizzard at the helm, here's what
he was your quarterback's coach, right?
Here's what I will say about it. Yeah, the guy comes from Miami. He had 11 years coaching in Miami. When the resume speaks for itself, the guy, I think, is from Yale, if I'm not mistaken. He's got all the credentials to be a successful coach, offensive coach in the NFL. But first, I want to take a step back, because what a great compliment for the Tampa Bay Bucs that back-to-back your offensive coordinators get pulled out, right? You almost hope that, in a way, you hate that it happens, but in another way, you're glad. Maybe you're hoping that it happens again, because that would mean that we had that success, right? But I'm hoping here for Grizzard that he has 2 years. I'm hoping that he gives Baker Mayfield 2 years. I think this is going to be now the 9th quarterback coach.
I'm hoping for Baker.
Okay, and the 9th quarterback coach. So here's hoping that he does at least give him 2 years. But to answer your question in a little bit more detail, as far as what I want to see, you can't take away tools from Grizzard and then expect the same production. So I expect him to be successful. Yes, I expect the top 5, but I also expect Godwin to return. I expect for us to address the offensive line just a little bit, because we've got a good offensive line. And as long as the weapons are there, Johnny, I absolutely expect us to be a top 5 offense this season with Mayfield at the helm.
I agree. I do expect Tampa to remain in that top 5 offense. Why wouldn't I? At the end of the day, they lost their offensive coordinator to Carolina. This Cohen comes in, and they improved. And I do not expect Godwin to come back with Tampa. I hope he does. I do not expect it.
He is, Johnny.
Yes,
he is.
I know. That's
I already
putting
put
it
it
out
in the
there.
air.
Exactly.
Florida Man Sports. I'm already 3 weeks ahead of everybody. You guys know. You guys are listening. It's going to happen.
I think that we're going to lose Godwin to free agency. But at the end of the day, still expect them to figure it out. because Tampa does have the weapons. And my God, the NFL ownership outside of Tampa, they must really think very low of Baker Mayfield. The only reason I say that is because exactly the reason. One and done offensive coordinators back to back. They're looking at the Tampa and being like, you had that kind of production with that guy? That guy there? Okay, here's a job. It's just, think about it, Chris. You had Cohen, who has, 5 years total coaching experience, collegiate and professional, head coach. Same thing here with the Carolina coach. Forgot his name, your coordinator from the year ago.
Yeah, Canales.
And it's like very little coaching experience. They got 1 year sample size with Tampa, and they're looking at, they're so impressed. Here's the keys to the helm. Here you go.
Well, and I'll tell you why. I see what you did there as far as you thinking it is a negative, where I think it's a positive, right? Kind of. But the matter of fact is this. It's not just an offense that was good, Johnny. It was an offense that was good on with passing and rushing. That's another thing that's very important. If you look back in Buccaneers history, we were terrible at rushing the ball. Terrible. Like the bottom 20, 25 when it comes to rushing the ball prior to Canales, prior to Cohen this last season. So that's another reason why I think the teams are looking for coaches in the offensive side to be a head coach that not just pass the ball, but run the ball as well.
Yeah, well, like I said, they were the number 4 scoring offense last year. So they did. Yeah. So overall, great job. So we'll find out sooner than later. Obviously, another year with Carolina and this year with Jacksonville.
Yeah, absolutely.
If it was the personnel or the coaching, because last year we saw from Carolina, there was some improvement.
Oh, there was. They brought him back.
Yeah, it was improvement. But let's be clear. There was no place to go but up by Carolina last year. So it's like, all right, now another year. Let's see what you can do here.
I'm happy for Bryce Young. I'm happy for that kid.
I like the kid, obviously, coming out of Alabama. Enjoyed him in college. But it's going to be interesting with Cohen if he is the guy. So I don't care. There's no, hey, you got a couple years to figure it out. No, Jacksonville, you have the personnel.
I'm still a little salty, so let's see if he lasts 2 years.
Well, you have the personnel. Let's do it there. Exactly. You have the personnel. So I don't want to hear this. No, go ahead and figure it out and win. Tampa, you have the pieces to win. All of our Florida teams have the pieces to win. I don't want to hear any more excuses. You guys
to be in the playoffs. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
You guys all have quarterbacks that can lead you to the Super Bowl as long as you actually make it through the season.
Right.
It's a big if for some of the Florida quarterbacks. But at the end of the day, we're excited about this season, Chris. It's going to be an incredibly exciting season for our Florida football teams.
Let's go.
Now, we're talking about next year here. There's been a report, Chris, that a couple of teams, one specific team isn't really happy about a move a certain team goes ahead and does every single season. The Tush push, Chris. The Tush push has been the real possibility of the Tush push being eliminated has been brought to the helm. So the Green Bay Packers, I went ahead and filed, I guess, their displeasure for the Tush push. And in the owners' meeting in March 30th, are going to go ahead and put it up for a vote if they are going to ban the Tush push. So, Chris, is the Tush push seen its final days, or is this something ridiculous that they should never remove to begin with?
Florida Man Sports, on all major platforms. Like, share, subscribe, folks. I wish that I could read the complaint. I wish I could read. Like,
it's not fair.
Yeah, like what kind of complaint is it? And what I love to see so far from Coach Bowles and everyone in the NFL that I've seen so far are saying, no, leave it alone. Instead, we just got to be a better team and we got to learn how to protect it. I'm a firm believer that if this move doesn't hurt the player, doesn't injure the player, right? Something that was new that injures the player, then maybe there's a cause for argument. But the fact that they're doing it and you can't stop them, stop crying.
Well, that is part of the argument, Chris, that they're like that. No, it does injure the chances of injuring a player goes greatly because you see what happens. Obviously, they push. Everybody's pushing.
Sure.
The quarterback can get injured. Offensive linemen, especially the center, getting injured.
And guess what? And guess what? When you're actually playing for it and they know that it's coming, that's when you're prepared for it and you're bracing. And it doesn't. And traditionally, you're not going to get injured. Which again, in the NFL, you can technically get injured in any play. I'm going to give you the difference. Do you remember Greg Schiano when he was the coach of the Bucs?
Yes.
Remember that he had that dumb rule at the end of the game. He would rush everybody when they were down by one score and tip them over and just bum rush them at the end of the game. And then Coach Coughlin completely blew up at Schiano because I was just like, what are you doing? The game was over. They were in victory formation. That stuff like that should be illegal. That kind of stuff, because at the end of the day, that could get you injured. People could get hurt. There's like 10 seconds left. Oh, the game's not over yet. Shut up. The game's over, man. The game's over. They're in victory formation. So stuff like that, I would have an argument with. This isn't the case. Green Bay Packers is the team that complained. Mm-hmm. Stop crying.
Yes, I understand everything you just said, Chris. At the end of the day, the argument for injury is a bunch of nonsense. Yes, any play in the NFL can potentially injure you. We've seen some of the biggest injuries to some of our most beloved players happen with no contact. Just the field has an issue to make a cut, knees blown out. You see a lot of players just going ahead, go up for a catch, and go ahead and break a wrist or do something there. So there's tons of different things that can happen here.
Absolutely.
Here's my issue with the tush push, and I think what the Packers are the ones that made it public, but there's plenty of teams that have voiced their, I guess, privately their concern regarding the tush push.
Sure.
They can't do it. You saw the Buffalo Bills make an attempt to their version of the tush push in the playoffs, and big reason why they didn't win that playoff game because they couldn't really execute it at all. It was embarrassing. So you have a number of teams that can't do what the Philadelphia Eagles can do with the tush push. But more importantly, Chris, it's not entertaining. And then the day, this is an entertaining business, and we're sitting here, we're looking at a 4th and 1. If you're going to go for it, even 3rd and 1, like, no, we want to see you hand it off to the running back. You want to see a dump pass to the tight end or something fake and do a deep pass. It's entertainment. The tush push is not entertaining to anyone outside of Philadelphia, and I understand it. So while the competitor in me is like, no, stop it. You're going to have to go and figure it out. You can't do it. Don't be mad because you can't do it. But I think they will end up banning this mainly because not because of injury, not because of that nonsense, mainly because the other teams can't execute it as well as Philadelphia, and it is not really viewable. It's not something that's entertaining, Chris. It's, when it's coming, you're like, oh, here it comes. And if you're a Philadelphia Eagles fan, you're like, yeah, because hey, that's a well thought play. It's a no fun league. That's what we have here. They're trying to go ahead and limit certain things outside of it. So this is something that they can actually go ahead and say, you know what, this boring play that almost always works, we're going to go ahead and eliminate it because I guarantee you, Chris, if 12, 13, 14 different teams could execute it the way Philadelphia does, then it'll be fine. But they can't. Nobody can. For whatever reason, maybe it's Jalen Hurts and his 600-pound squats. Doesn't matter.
It won't get banned. It won't get banned.
I think it will.
It won't get banned, and I'll double down on this. What's going to end up happening, Johnny, because you're right, maybe it's not the most fashionable, most cool-looking play when you're watching football. You know what will probably happen is that defenses will get aligned eventually to how to properly stop this. And guess what? That heals everything, because the moment that they don't get it over 50%, it's when they stop. And so I feel like that's going to be more realistic, where they're going to find a way to stop the play. They're going to redo their formations the way they need to do them to prevent it. And that's what's going to change this.
Okay, friendly wager then. I think it will be banned. You think it won't? If it is banned, which I think it will, then you got to wear a Patriots jersey.
And but see, it's a bet that will never be finished, because who's to say that 3-4 years? When does this
season in this upcoming season?
Okay, so banned. This coming up season, if it's not banned, then you're wearing a Bucs jersey. Done.
Yeah,
done.
So I was done there. All right.
Well, folks. Oh, go ahead.
No, Chris. It was something to where you're going to be wearing a Patriots jersey, so let's forget. Let's just move on from that. At least for your sake, it's going to be a Tom Brady jersey. But you're
going to wear a Jeff Garcia jersey when I'm done.
Before we end the show, Chris. Oh, the Jeff Garcia. Yeah, I forgot I got you that one a long time ago. Better than a Josh Freeman jersey. But before we go, Chris, any words on the latest with Rashad White? He's in a mess that
I was hoping that maybe we weren't going to talk about. I guess it's just breaking news. I'm glad you brought it up. I guess no, man. At the end of the day, I commend Rashad White for steering into the skid, because I refuse to be extorted by anybody. Extortion is not right. So you know what? You want to do that? Here's the FBI. Toma. And so that's all we know right now. That's all we know. And I just commend him for doing that. It takes a lot of guts, a lot of courage, because sometimes when that happens, you have to have rough conversations with loved ones and say, look, I'm not going to pay anything, and this is what's going on, and let's move forward. So
yeah, it's a local story. We have to go ahead and just kind of talk about it. But yeah, at the end of the day, if somebody's going to go ahead and try to get some money off you, I get it. I don't know what they have on you. I don't know. The situation could be embarrassing. Who cares? At the end of the day, it's just going to get worse. So respect to him to be like, nah, I'm not going to let you do this. It reminds me a lot of something that happened many years ago with Michael Jordan after retirement. They try to do the same things. Like, nah, you ain't doing that. So let's go ahead and just countersue and kind of deal with all that. But Best of luck to Rashad White. You're a Tampa Bay Buccaneer for now. We'll see if that's going to happen beginning of the season.
He will be. Listen.
But, either way, Chris, any final words?
No. Just thank you, folks, for listening. Again, we are streaming on all major platforms. And keep in mind, too, that it is February. Florida Man Sports here, Florida Man Football. We're aware of that. And so as college football starts ramping up, as the NFL draft starts kicking off, we're only getting warmed up with this new show that we're doing here, folks. So
Yes,
stay with us. He's Johnny. I'm Christian. We're out, y'all.
Later.